There has been an on and off debate about a really strange episode from the overlooked CatDog cartoon on the forums. From what was mentioned, this strange episode would only air after midnight hours, particularly around 4 in the morning on Spanish satellite. This particular one was known to be overall eerie, slightly saturated of color, and rather impossible to follow along. I got in contact with a friend's peer who was able to describe everything to me. They remembered their screens shut off completely while watching one other show, and simply showed a title card from another cartoon. They figured out the show was CatDog, seeing the very strange drawing of dog. This title card lasted longer than usual before transitioning to the actual episode, which began with an empty grassy field with no signs of anything or any characters inside. About a moment later, it would pan over to Cat, who would be sitting around bored out of his mind, looking off into the distance as if he was waiting for someone to come get them. On the other side, the dog faced away from Cat, barking at something. Whatever it was, we couldn't see. Cat would look over every so often and shake his head in annoyance, muttering under his breath. Dog brains. So stupid. Though eventually Dog did stop barking, staying completely silent. Cat looked over once more and jokingly asked why Dog stopped his yapping. Dog didn't say anything in response, which nagged Cat that now he was being ignored, so he grabbed Dog by the shoulders and forced him around to get a good look at him. Dog was described to have zero recognizable facial features. He didn't have those big oval eyes or a toothy grin, only small wide eyes and an invisible mouth. Cat just looked at his canine companion for a moment more, before scoffing, and told him to stop making weird faces to scare him off like that. Again, Dog didn't say anything after Cat faced away, looking even more grumpy. Eventually, a dark, stormy sky approached, when it zoomed in rather quickly on Cat's worry expression. But it quickly cut to Dog's empty face again, before it froze in silence. It would stay on his face for another minute before flashing to Cat aimlessly running around in the rain, looking for a way out of his empty hell. He kept screaming, "Where was home? Why isn't it here? I made sure it was here, so why can't I find it? Oh God, I'm gonna blow a gasket if I see any more patches of grass." Dog was being dragged behind Cat again, laying completely motionless, as if he were out unconscious, but kept that disturbing blank look. This charade of running around lasted for minutes on end, and eventually Cat tired himself out and leaned against a slab or rock in the ground, panting. He shook as his eyes bulged and got veiny. He looked down at Dog and shook him violently, screaming at him. "Say anything, you mutt." But his head just slumped over, which left with Cat ripping some of his hairs out, then slammed his head a couple of times on the stone. Slowly, bits of moss began to break apart, revealing the stone had a carving of Dog's face smiling happily with a halo over his head, showing that this was a grave for Dog. He stared at the grave for several moments before looking down with the most disappointed and sleep-ridden look. Dog sat right up and looked directly at Cat when he started speaking for the first time. But the audio on the episode cut and completely warbled, obstructing what Dog was trying to say, though it has been agreed on that Dog said, "Please, join me, Cat. I would be scared and sad if I went alone. We are not meant to stay in this world forever. Dog lunged and dug his terrifyingly sharp teeth into Cat's neck, sending him into a paralyzing shock and putting him to sleep. A new scene began with a new character. Loop, who was one of the members from the Greasers, appeared from behind a moving bus he just got off of. He started walking through an empty field and made his way up to whatever he was looking down on, teary-eyed, and began to sputter out some eulogy. The dubbing was terribly translated, but all that the viewer could provide me with was, "I wasn't sure how to come to this. I feel you were like a brother to me, but you know you can't hear me say that. I am not sure why, but sometimes I wish." Loop slowly trailed off, quickly forgetting what he was about to say. Instead, he just looked down in silence, bowing his head. The view panned into the ground, into total darkness. You could hear Loop speaking over and over again, but the decline of the audio made it hard to understand what he was saying. The final scene showed the field from the beginning of the episode, which was now lined up with 9 headstones. Dog returned to the way he was, but he too was forlorn, shoveling up the 8th grave on the far right and pulling out Cat, who was hollowed out, disheveled looking, and seemed decomposed. It stayed on the screen for a few moments more before it cut back to Dog, who just silently shed tears. This was the only way he could see his friend again. Dog wasn't dead. Cat was. The episode concluded with a voiceover, and everything resumed as it should, as if the airing never occurred on the channel times. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, because there are more chilling tales to be told. Also, check out my other social media profiles. The links for those are down in the description. Thanks for listening.